This week on Quality Digest Live, we chat with Glenn Frazier of Verse Solutions about hacks for your risk management process.
That's right. Plus, learning the difference between policies and procedures. That and more when we come back.
Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for October 3rd, 2014. QDL is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Dirk Ducharme, editor-in-chief of Quality Digest.
There you go.
You know, sometimes it feels like somebody's watching me.
Yeah, I remember that song.
You remember that song? Right.
I remember the parachute pants that went with it, too.
Exactly. At least if you're Zarbee's. Zarbee's is a manufacturer of natural health remedies who recently got a warning letter from the FDA, which apparently the FDA is hanging out on Twitter and Facebook along with all the cool kids. The FDA's warning letter reads like many warning letters that the FDA sends out that address claims made by manufacturers of health remedies. In this case, the FDA was pointing to language on Zarbee's site that products such as Zarbee's Naturals Children's Cough Syrup, quotes, calms coughs, or that Zarbee's Naturals Seasonal Relief is, quotes, clinically supported to work fast and offer congestion relief so you can breathe better in every season, or, quotes, proven congestion relief. According to the FDA, that kind of language indicates to consumers that such a product is a drug, which is a no-no unless the FDA has approved your product as such. So when this happens, the FDA sends out warning letters saying, hey, change your language, get rid of this, that, and the other, put disclaimers in, whatever. So it's fairly normal as far as FDA warning letters are concerned. What's interesting about this particular letter is what it goes on to say, as reported by Tamar June in the article, "The FDA is reading your Facebook page." According to June, the FDA started looking at Zarbee's Facebook and Twitter activity and noted that they were using or liking customer comments about their products, and that the nature of these comments would indicate as well that these Zarbee's products are, in fact, drugs. The FDA's exact wording was along this lines. This is exactly what the FDA wording was. Your Facebook page also contains evidence of intended use in the form of personal testimonials recommending or describing the use of the products for the cure, mitigation, treatment, or prevention of disease. Examples of such testimonials, which are endorsed or promoted by Zarbee's, include, and I think we have a little slide here, and this again is a quote from the warning letter. Zarbee's liked, referring to Facebook here, Zarbee's liked the following comment made on January 7th, 2014. I've been battling either bronchitis or pneumonia for the last 18 days and have tried everything. Your children's cough syrup and mucus relief got rid of my hoarseness. My throat and chest are beginning to feel so much better. On January 6th, 2014, it is the best thing for my granddaughter's bronchitis. These were just a few of the postings mentioned and the likes mentioned in the FDA warning letter. So in general, what the FDA is saying is that manufacturers have to be careful how they use third-party comments in their own promotions. Obviously, Zarbee's didn't have any control over what these people wrote, but Zarbee's used the comments, or they liked the comments. And in FDA's mind, they treat those comments just as they would if they came from the company's own marketing department. In other words, they have to adhere to FDA regulations. So this gets into a whole area of what do you do about social media if you are some sort of regulated company, and in this case an FDA or potentially an FDA regulated company. They aren't in this case because their products aren't FDA regulated. So FDA has put out actually some interesting guidance documents. One of them talks about how you use Twitter feeds and still adhere to FDA regulations, and also they actually have a document handling corrections of incorrect third-party posts. So what this refers to is, let's say in the case of Zarbee's, they saw language out there, people were using this guidance document from the FDA, a draft guidance document, says that if a company runs across these, the FDA doesn't require them to go out and tell these people to make corrections to their comments or whatever, but the fact that they put a draft guidance document out there kind of indicates that the FDA wishes you would go out there and do something. The FDA understands that you can't control what a third party is saying about your product. However, you can control how you use it, which was the case with Zarbee's, or if you want to, the FDA would like you to, I'm assuming in the subtext, they would like you to go out there and correct that language to take down or modify any language that really doesn't adhere to the way the FDA would like certain products to be called out or to be referenced. By the way, Zarbee's has changed some of the language and added disclaimers to their webpage. But I just thought it's just as we go on, you just got this whole issue of if social media in companies, and in particular now companies that are regulated in some way, they just because it's a third party doesn't mean that they've got free reign to use them anyway, those comments any way they want. They're still under the same regulations they were before social media ever came along.
Yeah, and FDA is going to continue to keep their eye on it, so they're going to continue to regulate that appropriately as we go along. And it's always new environments that the FDA and organizations like that need to keep their eyes on. So good stuff there. Thanks, Dirk. All right, well, today, as many of you know, is Manufacturing Day, and it's a perfect opportunity to recognize and appreciate the positive effect that manufacturing has on our lives. Now, right now, as a matter of fact, here on October 3rd, there are events taking place across the United States. There are plant tours, open houses, and screenings of a new documentary, American-Made Movie, all devoted to helping people understand the art and science that underpins this crucial sector of the U.S. economy. As a matter of fact, Penny Pritzker and President Barack Obama right now are in Indiana.
That's right.
At a plant, a steel manufacturer, I believe, and they're honoring Manufacturing Day, which is the brainchild of the Fabricators and Manufacturers Association. It's sponsored and supported by a host of prominent industry organizations, including the Association for Manufacturing Excellence, the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, the National Institute of Science and Technology, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and many, many, many more.
A lot of people involved in manufacturing.
Very, very much so. As I mentioned, Manufacturing Day events are in full swing at this very moment. One such event is happening as a plant tour. It's happening literally right down the street over there. We can almost hear it right here in our little town of Chico, California. The name of the company hosting the event is Transfer Flow. Transfer Flow is a manufacturer of aftermarket and OEM fuel tank systems and fuel system related parts. Transfer Flow has been an industry leader for more than 30 years. We were invited into Transfer Flow yesterday to talk about their company and upcoming Manufacturing Day happening today. So here's what we found out from Warren Johnson, Transfer Flow's Vice President of Marketing.
We got involved in Manufacturing Day really to show people what we do at Transfer Flow. We are primarily a fuel tank manufacturer, aftermarket fuel tanks and OEM fuel tanks. Aftermarket line is for people who want to increase their fuel capacity on their truck. OEM, which is original equipment manufacturer. Those are the fuel tanks that we make for motorhomes and the original fuel tanks for vehicles. Americans should know that manufacturing involves roughly 19 million people that are in that industry. Anything from, say, fuel tanks for us, to chairs, to sofas, to vehicles, from the biggest objects to the smallest object, it's manufacturing. You know, this is our second year doing it. We're actually a member of the National Association of Manufacturers, who is sponsoring this event, and great organization. We are opening up our doors to the Chico community. Last year we had over 150 people that came here. This year we're expecting more, and what we're going to do is just take groups of people on tours through our engineering department, our production department, through our warehouse, show them the products, how they're made, all the machines that we use, the machines in operation, the employees making the product. A lot of people don't realize where products are made, how they're manufactured, what goes into the manufacturing process of a, say for us, a fuel tank system, from the initial design to the final product that's actually going on a customer's vehicle. They don't realize that, you know, there are so many products in this country that are not made in China, but that are actually made here in the United States. And we're proud to be one of those companies whose product is made here in the United States.
Warren Johnson, and as you can see, I think there's a lot going on here in Northern California regarding manufacturing and innovation. Our home university, CSU Chico, offers a groundbreaking sustainable manufacturing program that we covered last year on this show.
That's right.
Yeah, yesterday, CSU Chico and Transfer Flow, among other local manufacturers, worked together on what they call the North State Grow Manufacturing Roundtable and Expo, an event where they, again, kind of brought in local people to check out what they're doing with regard to manufacturing. We also have the North State Lean organization here in Butte County.
Been running for quite a while, actually.
That's right, for a very long time. We've covered that organization for more than a decade here through Quality Digest. That group includes companies such as Lair's Research, a medical device manufacturer, and FAFCO, a manufacturer of solar equipment, solar energy equipment, both of whom we work with closely. As a matter of fact, we've worked with both those organizations in our sister companies, 360 Performance Circles video series on Lean and implementing Lean, which is available now. So that's a very close relationship we have with these local organizations. So for more information about Manufacturing Day, visit online at www.mfgday.com or click on the story link, as always, below the video player screen. You can see the pieces that Dirk and I are going to be covering on today's show, all right down there. And while you're doing that, while you're clicking online, go ahead and check out TransferFlow. They're online at www.transferflow.com. Really good group of people over there, good manufacturer doing some good work, so check them out as well.
That's right. Okay, any of you out there who are ISO 9001 certified or looking to become certified are aware of some of the changes to the 2015 version of 9001 coming down the pike. In particular, the emphasis on risk management. Some of you might be a little worried about how you even handle risk. I mean, isn't this just going to be another overwhelming task that you need to tackle along with all the other overwhelming tasks that you do in your job day to day, the other documentation and so forth that you need to handle in order to achieve or maintain your ISO 9001 certification? Isn't it just going to pile on? Well, maybe not. And that's the topic of the article, Hacking Risk Management, by Glenn Fraser, one of this week's stories in Quality Digest Daily. And Glenn just happens to be with us this morning via phone from Copenhagen, Denmark. Hey, Glenn.
Hello.
So first of all, well, by the way, I wish we were there with you in Copenhagen, Denmark. Sounds like it's beautiful over there.
Very much so.
Better here in sweltering Chico today. Well, first of all, just briefly, tell us a little bit about how risk management is going to be a part of ISO 9001 2015. What will auditors most likely be looking for?
Sure. Well, as part of a general direction, I think you can safely say that all of the standards are moving to incorporate risk management at some level. What 9001 2015, and as you mentioned, still in its draft phases, is doing is really broadening and elevating this idea of risk management. Even the older ISO 9001 had specific references to risk, but not a lot of guidance. So the new standard, the new proposed, is to elevate the idea of risk management up to a much higher priority. It emphasizes that there are system-wide risks that can be a concern outside of just products, say, or HR. It can include customers, employees, vendors, risks to the environment, communities. There's just a recognition that risks are everywhere. And it also has companies try and balance frequency, probability, likelihood, whatever your chosen term, versus the impact, the severity of potential events. So what it's really looking for companies to do is to evaluate places where they've got risk and make sure that there's a process in place for identifying them, understanding them, and managing those risks. Auditors are really looking for that process, making sure that the organization is understanding where their risks are and basing their actions on that. You know, again, risk's been around for quite a while, and FDA especially has been pushing the concept of risk-based corrective action for a little while, quite a while.
Well, I mean, so
this is really just elevating it.
What you just described, I mean, to me that sounds a little overwhelming. I mean, risk can be in any part of the organization. You've got to think about it. You've got to cover it. I mean, but in your article you say it doesn't have to be an overwhelming task. So are you saying that maybe a lot of people are just kind of overthinking this whole thing?
I do believe they are. And what I believe is that true risk management, understanding your risks, responding to them, can be an evolution, a journey. So it can start out relatively simple. It does not need to be overly complex, but a lot of people want to jump, they want to run before they walk, to use the expression, or crawl, whatever you prefer. But the idea is that it doesn't have to be. It truly does not. I would argue that every organization is already managing risk. Whether they're calling it that or not, everybody's doing it. There are risks in every action we take. There are risks in not taking action. So companies are used to dealing with repercussions and strategizing and reacting and trying to be proactive. All of those are risk management, just with different labels.
Well, Glenn, let's talk a little bit about some of the tools that you use, because you do talk about this in your article, the tools that you can use to I guess, quantify and assess risk. You mentioned three again. You mentioned the decision tree, risk matrix, and risk reporting and trending. In your experiences, which of these are the most useful?
I'd say, back to that earlier statement, it is a journey. So organizations should pick a tool, a methodology that matches both their operation and the sort of risk work that they've already done, whether they've called it risk assessment or not. So smaller organization, they can use this idea of a decision tree. Many organizations would call it a script, or I know to follow a certain set of steps. I answer a question, I follow a path. It can be represented as a flow chart. People who have a better handle on severity, likelihoods, they can go to a risk matrix. But those are only a couple of the tools. There's many others that are out there. Virtually every manufacturer I've ever spoken to does some sort of FMEA, failure mode, on their products. It's just another way of measuring risk. And we've also got risk surveys. Oh, sorry.
And I think you said that to a certain extent, whether they call it these things or not, people probably do have some of these tools already in place. I think you call it the decision tree, while other people, like you said, may just have a script in case this happens, or in this situation, do this, that, and the other. And you're saying that's essentially the same as a decision tree?
That is correct. Yep.
So a lot of people, so basically I think kind of the upshot, and you'll be getting into this in a webinar next week, but it sounds like what you're saying is basically kind of leveraging the tools that you may already be using. You don't necessarily have to go out on a limb and start learning all sorts of new stuff. It's just recognizing maybe what you already have in place and how to leverage that into your ISO 9001 documentation and process and so forth.
Correct. And then being able to take advantage of some of that data that you've gathered over time and make sure that you've covered all of your risks. Data is incredibly important as a company matures and starts to gather a history. We'd often call it a risk register, a list of items and risk items or hazards, controls that we've got in place. You can start to build a library, and eventually companies can even start to automate part of that risk assessment based on history. Based on data that you've accumulated within your organization. You could start to, I don't particularly like the word predict, but you could start to understand how likely something is to happen and have a tool suggest a likelihood.
Okay.
The impact, the outcome is generally known. You can decide that with a group of experts. So you can really start to standardize risk once you start to build some history and have common definitions of risk across your organization. It's something you can grow into quite easily.
Okay, well, Glenn, thanks for that. And actually, we're going to be joining Glenn again next week, right?
Yeah, Tuesday, October 7th at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, for the webinar, Hacking Risk Management. Dirk, you're going to be hosting that or moderating that with Glenn?
Along with Glenn, that's right.
That's right.
Okay, well, Glenn, thanks for joining us this morning, or this evening in your case.
Thank you for having me.
All right, enjoy Copenhagen.
Yeah, enjoy Europe. We'll see you then, Glenn.
Yes.
So,
Bye-bye. Yeah, we look forward to that one, Dirk,
Yep,
on
it'll be
Tuesday.
fun.
Going to be a good webinar. We just kind of scratched the surface there, but certainly, as we mentioned, if you're if you're thinking about risk management, if you're doing risk management already, tune in for the webinar on Tuesday, and you can actually check. Believe you can actually go through Glenn's article.
Yes.
And you can register for the
Yeah,
webinar.
if you go to the article, Hacking Risk Management,
Yeah.
down at the bottom of the article, there's a link that you can go out to the webinar and sign up.
That's right. Okay. Well, do you know
I
the
know lots of
difference between a policy and a procedure? That's the theme of a new article from Teresa Tarwater, The Unforced Error in Quality, which appeared in yesterday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. In the simplest terms, policies are designed to help people understand what they need to know, and procedures are there to help people do specific things. Policies therefore tend to be necessarily broad, and procedures should be as narrowly defined as possible. I mean, it makes sense. Sure. One's kind of more strategic in nature, one's more tactical.
It's actually kind of the difference. Strategies and tactics, right?
Really, I mean, policies really are that broad thing that you want to be all-encompassing, and procedures, you really want to nail it down. As Teresa Tarwater mentions in this piece, there are a couple of things that managers sometimes do that can hinder organizational performance in this realm. For example, they write policies without having supporting procedures to document how the policy objectives are to be implemented and achieved. She has a sports metaphor that she uses throughout this article. And
you like that?
I like that. I'm a sports guy, but she extends that one to this one. She says it's kind of like akin to the head coach saying to the team, "Okay, our policy is to go out there and win the game, and now go do it." Okay, what you need really you need instructions, you need training, you need guidance, you need to help your team achieve the success as defined by the policy, but to do that, obviously, you need well-written procedures as well. A related common error goes in the other direction, having procedures in place that don't align with the overarching organizational policies. Disconnects and wasted time and effort is the result, but however, in some highly regulated environments, such out-of-sync procedures can cause non-compliance with legal or regulatory controls, which is obviously no bueno, not good. Yeah, so I mean, you have these procedures that are written, and you kind of know how that happens. I mean, people kind of write procedures kind of on the side of things, and they just kind of develop these procedures that may not really be aligned with what the policies say you're supposed to do, and that can be a really major issue. Again, it's bad all over, but it can be a really major issue in a regulated environment. Finally, there's the ultimate error, what I consider to be the error of commission, lumping all policies and procedures together and forcing employees to hunt for answers themselves. You think about it, you want the information to be clear, you want it to be concise, you want it to be easily located. If it's not, you can bet that an auditor, an ISO auditor, for example, is going to chalk that up as a non-conformity.
That's right. Employees are supposed to know where everything is and what the procedures are and how to do it, and that they follow the actual procedures.
And that they follow it. I mean, all this stuff should be really simple and basic and streamlined. And if you're copping out kind of and not identifying what's a policy, what's a procedure, and identifying them really clearly, again, you're copping out and you're going to have a non-conformity. The bottom line, I think, is that like everything else regarding quality and process improvement, you need a clear plan that everyone in the organization understands and can use. As I mentioned, silos, things like homespun workarounds and deal with procedures on the fly are almost always going to get you in trouble. There's no doubt about it. You got to build systems that can help you keep your documents straight, and you got to train your team until using that information and updating it when necessary becomes second nature. And that's really what we're getting at here. What Teresa's saying is you need the systems in place. You need to make sure everybody understands those systems. You need to drill your team on it so that when that ISO auditor comes around, that team knows the answers. And not just because you want to satisfy the auditor, but the team needs to know the answers. They need to know if X happens, you do Y, and where can you find the information on Y. If you don't know it by memory, you go here and you find it and you implement it. That's really the key thing here, is understanding what to do if something happens.
That's right. Yeah. And as we kind of touched on, if you're ISO 9001 registered company, you pretty much have to do that. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to get in trouble come audit time.
No doubt.
All right. Well, the Quality Digest team, as we've told you a couple times, was at the IMTS show a few weeks ago, and we had the chance, as usual, to see a lot of new test and measurement equipment. This week's Tech Corner is a visit we had at Nikon's booth to take a look at Nikon's new cross-scanner XC65DX. Take a look. And we're at the Nikon booth here at IMTS 2014, where we're going to look at kind of an interesting comparison between two different technologies here at the Nikon booth, between two different CMMs. And here to tell us about it is David Schlaud. And David, what are we looking at? I see a CMM here on the left with what, a touch probe?
Yes, correct.
And what's on the right here?
This is our cross scanner, the XC65DX laser scanner.
And what are we actually demonstrating here? One side's faster than the other, or?
Correct. We have 2 parts over here on the laser scanner side and 1 part over here on the touch probe side. What we're showcasing is that the laser scanner is roughly 2 times faster, or if not even more, than the touch probe.
So you got a regular touch probe over here. It's going through. It's doing what a touch probe does, which is relatively
Correct.
slow, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Taking discrete points one by one, whereas the laser scanner we're taking a lot more points.
Okay.
In the same amount of
And
time.
from what I understand, the accuracy is fairly similar between these 2 machines. So you're getting all this throughput. It's much faster, but non-contact and same accuracy. I mean.
Yes, correct. So with one of the inherent problems with touch probing is probe error. So with the laser scanner, we're able to account for that and not have those errors.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about the laser scanner. This looks a little bit different. It's got, what, 3 different lasers on it?
Correct. So this laser scanner is specially designed for sheet metal parts. So with the 3 different laser scanners, we're able to get into the sides of the features to be able to obtain feature position, feature location, feature size, along with scanning the contours of the surface.
Okay, so how would this differ from, I mean, I've seen regular like laser line scanners. What would be the advantages of this type of probe over, let's say, a regular, some other type of scanner? Maybe your competitors.
Correct. So our ability to pick up shinier surfaces, we have a feature called ESP3, which lets us dynamically change each point on that laser line that we're collecting. We can dynamically change the laser intensity of those points. So if you have a part that has...
On the fly, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
So as you're scanning the part, if you have embedded materials that are different colors than the original part, then the laser line can actually dynamically change the intensity so that it gets a good return back to the camera.
So even if it, like this happens to be all one solid color, but you're saying if you had a part that was different colors or different
Correct.
reflectivities, as it reached that new section, it would just change.
Yep. So
Okay.
even a part assembly, if you have 2 mated parts together that were 2 different materials, we're able to scan those 2 parts without having to change the settings. So that adaptability on the fly is a benefit.
Okay. And what about just the advantages of laser scanning in general? I mean, obviously, speed is one of them. We've
Correct.
talked about that. But what do you get from laser scanning that you might not get from just simple touch probing?
Yeah, it's the amount of data that we collect. So we're collecting about 75,000 points per second. So if you can imagine, that would take you a very long time to collect that with a touch probe. So one of the benefits of that is to be able to cover the part in XYZ points, and we're able to get a 3D color map of that deviation of the part.
So what you call a contour map, right?
Correct.
Is that something you can bring up on the screen by any
Yes,
chance?
we
okay.
can.
Okay. Do we want to do that now or later? Or?
Later.
Okay. We'll get a shot of that later. So we've talked about kind of the speed of throughput, kind of the advantage of the contour map. Anything else that this kind of technology buys the user that they wouldn't get over a standard, let's say, a touch probe machine? Cost about the same?
The cost is a little bit more.
But they're making up through throughput, obviously. I mean, you get a much
Correct.
higher throughput. Okay.
Correct. So if you're taking into account the additional cost, but time savings could be 50%,
Okay.
then that's a very quick return on investment. So we have a lot of customers that we do benchmarks for, and they see that potential savings and end up purchasing laser scanners.
Okay, David, so earlier you were talking to us about kind of the advantages of scanning, is the idea of collecting a point cloud, being able to create a contour plot, a colored contour plot. So now we've moved over to another station so we actually have a monitor
Yes.
we can look at. We're going to take a look at a contour plot. Why don't you tell us what we're seeing?
What you're seeing here up on the contour plot is the color deviations. So the color represents how far those data points that we've collected are from the nominal CAD model. So you can see the high spots on the top left corner are red. So we're reaching up towards 2 millimeters above the CAD model, and the blue areas are going to be, lower than the CAD model. So what we can do with those points are take measurements. So for instance, we can select on those data points and take discrete points, and it will tell us how far exactly in that area we are away from the CAD model.
So what's being marked off right now in the flyouts is that point, the distance from what the
Correct.
CAD model is expecting, right?
Yep, that exact XYZ data point and how far it is away from the CAD model.
Okay.
What we can also do is take that data and extract features from it. So some of these features on there, such as the slots and the circles, we can then use that data to extract those features out.
These are the actual measurements.
Correct.
Of that
Yep.
part. Okay.
And you can do GD&T with that, true position, take diameters, radiuses, and the limitless possibilities.
So much more greater wealth of information than you'd get with a simple touch probe, which might give you some basic features, whether you're in tolerance, but with a contour map, millions of points.
Correct.
You're really seeing the entire object and know everything about it you need to know.
And that is correct. And also we can go back to the data if we need to and bring it back up and take some measurements that we may not have taken previously.
Okay. So the scanner that we're looking at, kind of the advantages are speed of throughput,
Yep.
much more data, about the same accuracy as a touch probe, and just a much more wealth of data that you can look at, compare to CAD, and really understand what you're understand the quality of the part that you're measuring.
Yep, and that is correct.
Okay. Well, David, appreciate it. Thanks for showing us.
Thank you.
What was the name of the probe again?
XC65DX.
XD65DS. Okay. Thanks. Back to you, Mike. And thanks to Nikon for allowing us to come into the booth and take a look at their cross scanner XC65DX.
DX, that was
okay.
it.
Well,
That's right, from Nikon.
Before we go, we had a question come in.
We did have a question come in from a reader. We want to go to right now, show it to you. So this comes from a viewer. He says, it seems like quality in, say, the life sciences is worlds apart from quality in industrial manufacturing or corporate performance management or supply chain. What would you say are the core problems faced universally by all quality management professionals? Thanks a bunch. This is an easy one for us to talk about in the last minute of the show, Dirk.
Thanks a bunch. That's what he said was thanks a bunch. I think you were saying thanks a bunch for that question.
Well,
okay.
I think, to me, I look at it as a continuation. I think he's responding to Research Harwar's article. To me, it's the same. Quality is quality. I think that what Teresa's saying about training your team, making sure that they understand the procedures and processes and policies, and making sure that you do what you say you're going to do, that to me is the key. There are differences, of course, in life sciences and straight manufacturing.
Well, yeah, and particularly if you're in some sort of, let's say, life sciences where you might be FDA regulated and so forth. But in the end, everybody faces the same problem. It's like, I've got to meet certain customer requirements, internal or external customer. I've got to meet, perhaps, regulations. How do I do that? What processes do I have in place? And no matter who you are, no matter what your industry is, whether it's a product or a service or whatever, or government for that matter, everybody has a set of goals that they have to reach. That's the same problem faced by everybody, and it comes down to documentation and training.
Yeah, training. Training is really the key one. We talked about it again in the Teresa Tarwar article. And you do that not because necessarily you want to pass an audit, of course you do, but you do that so your team understands what you're doing. You as a quality manager, it's not that hard for you. It's what you do. It's your job. So you should be able to understand those things and spit them back pretty quickly. But can the people doing the job do that same thing within their own area of operation? That's the key thing. And you have to make sure that they know what they're doing and it aligns with what your policies and your procedures are.
That's right.
I think that's the key thing.
And we hope we answered your question.
We hope we answered your question. If not, write us back.
It sounded really cool what we said anyway. So
thank you for that. Okay, well that's our show for this week. We had a good show. Don't forget next Tuesday, this Tuesday coming up on the 7th, we have an interesting webinar.
Hacking risk management.
Hacking risk management with Verse Solutions. Glenn Frazier and Dirk will be presenting that on the 7th at, again, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific.
And thanks to Glenn for joining us.
Thanks to Glenn for joining us. Thanks to all of you for being there. Check out the webinar next week. Check out a great week of Quality Digest Daily next week, and next Friday right here at Quality Digest Live.
So long.
Thanks again. Have a good weekend.
Four, three, two, one, fire.